Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Chris Cup Series, and we're going to be seeing the Chrisabama 250 here at Talladega. My name is Sam Dyer, and I've got Logan Breakey here with me. Logan, it was an eventful week last week, and it looks like we're going to be having some more fun here at Talladega.
Yeah, absolutely, Sam. That race at Texas couldn't have ended in more dramatic fashion with Chris Bass finally cracking his goose egg open and getting that first victory of the season for him with a little bit of last lap drama. And we're at Talladega this week. There's no race at Talladega without the word drama thrown in the mix there somewhere. So this should be a very exciting race, very fast race, and I can't wait for this one to get rolling.
This is probably one of the best wild card races for drivers that have not gotten a win yet. So all the drivers that are looking to get their first win, this is probably one of the races that they have circled up. But a car looking for redemption, that's probably going to be Christopher Morris, and Morris looking to have a good finish today. But starting up on the pole, it's going to be Chris M. Scott in that Chris Bull car, and both Logan and I got our Red Bulls here ready to take a couple of sips throughout the race, but it's going to be a fun one here. 94 laps, looking like it's going to be a one pit stop race, and it's just going to be a lot of pack racing and some fun passing here and there.
Yeah, you're going to see a little bit of strategy played in as well here, Seth. You're going to see guys that maybe really need this win desperately, that really haven't shown the pace throughout the rest of the season or throughout the first half of the season. Either play a very aggressive strategy or play maybe a more laid-back strategy. We'll see guys riding around at the back all day on purpose to kind of just make sure they're there at the end of this thing to give themselves a chance to win. So it's going to be a mixed bag of strategy here this afternoon as guys try to survive the full distance of this thing.
And as we're starting to see cars pull away, we're going to run through the lineup like we said. Chris Scott going to be getting the pole, and Chris Noblet had the pole for the longest time, and then that Ford machine right at the end snuck it right away from the 17.
Yeah, pretty reasonable pace for that Ford machine. As you said, he qualified on pole with a 50.930 versus a 50.949. So in terms of super speedways, that's a fairly big difference in speed between those two guys. So when we come to a super speedway, we talk about 10,000ths of a second is that could make a difference here coming to the line, as we've seen so many times in the real thing and here on iRacing. It's just nose to tail, bumper to bumper the whole way around here, and it's just a matter of inches, and that's what it's going to come down here to today.
Chris Hupka and Chris Otto going to be in the second row, and the third is going to be Chris Edwards and Chris Roberg. Roberg running that Chrissy D machine, and I think it's probably one of my favorite machines to look out here. I can't wait to see if that 98 machine get back up front and lead some laps. Then in seventh, it's going to be Chris Leach and Chris Jones, and Jones rocking a new scheme today. We'll be looking at it later on.
Certainly some fancy schemes in the field here today. One of the more notable schemes would be that Bass Pro Shops 3 Chevrolet that we see there, starting 16th. He's the first of our non-qualifiers, it looks like, there on the outside row, the Chevrolet. It could just be my trading paints that's not loading in, but it's one of the few schemes in this field that is not affiliated with a Chris in the field here, Seth, or Sam's.
Yeah, there looks like that is the only one of all the cars that I look through throughout practice, but the pace car looks like it's rolling off, and we're getting ready to go. The drivers have to get through the tri-oval first, and this is one of the trickier parts of the racetrack. Got to make sure you don't hit anyone or use any of the bump drafting throughout this oval here around the tri-oval, but it's going to be a fun one to watch. 94 laps, and we are been ready to go. Green as the 4 car takes off.
Good steady start. One thing you'll notice here, Sam, throughout the course of the race and on the restarts is the guy leading the race will not try to get a jump like you see at so many other races that we've been to this season. You don't want to jump out to a big lead, because all that's going to do is allow the guys to leave you in the dust coming down this back straightaway. So a nice easy restart for Chris Scott. It's going to allow the 5 to suck right back up to his back bumper, give him a good push down the backstretch into turn 3. A pretty tame start here.
looking at cars that are going to be having some interesting stops. It looked like Christopher Takis did make it into today's race. Wasn't sure if he was going to make it or not. He is going to be starting all the way to the back, starting in the pit road, and then he'll be taking off. But that 46 machine all the way in last, waiting to see if he'll be able to take off and get going here. But up front, Chris Scott going to be leading the first lap. And, you know, with Talladega, most super speedway races, there's two different tactics. There's the guys trying to get up front as soon as possible, and the ones that are laying back. Now, Logan, what type of strategy do you usually use here at these speedways?
I mean, for me personally, it's always kind of play it safe and make it around to the end. But it's easier said than done, honestly, Sam, because when you play that card, it's easy to fall into the trap of getting too far behind the lead pack. And when you do that, it's so hard to catch back up, especially if it stays green. And you just have to make sure you're playing your cards right and playing it safe, but at the same time, you're still in the toe of that lead pack. Otherwise, you just get left behind, and it's so hard to come back from a lap down here.
You're seeing Chris Scott lead another lap, really holding charge on that bottom line and not going to be leaving it anytime soon. It's that top line that need to get organized and get going, as it's Chris Roberg up there in third, leading that high line.
Yeah, you see that, as you said, that top line trying to form up, but what could also be the case here too, Sam, is these guys up on this front pack, you know, they're comfortable with where they're running. They're saying, hey, we got 94 circuits around this thing, so let's just take it easy. Let's ride where we're at. We're in the lead pack. We're in a good spot. There's no need to push each other hard down the backstretch to get an advantage. Let's just kind of ride around and let this race come to us. And I don't think we'll see anything too abrasive here at the start of this thing, as you see the 98 drop to the middle there to open up the door for the 17 on the top. Possibly just a chance for the 17 to cool his stuff down.
That was Noblet that thought about making it 3 wide for the lead. Thought otherwise as he was in tri-oval, trying to scrub off that speed, get right back on the back bumper of Roberg, and trying to make that outside line work. But, you know, the longer you see, I mean, you're just seeing on screen, there's a lot more cars on that inside line, but you got to give credit to the 98 and the 17 on the high side.
Talladega was is slightly different in terms of that high side working than we saw at Daytona. The Daytona is it is in a sense a little bit of a sharper corner than Talladega is. So the outside has a lot more pull at Daytona than it does at Talladega. So you'll see that outside run. You'll see that outside line getting a run off the corners, but not as much as you would see at Daytona here earlier in the season. So it'll be interesting to see which line ends up becoming the preferred line whenever it comes to making moves.
Lap led by Roberg there that time, so showing he doesn't need to fully pass the 4 car. That's something to take note, as it looks like a car gets stuck on the bottom, drifting on back. That's Chris Bass on the inside, who got shuffled out of the inside line.
Yeah, it got shuffled out, or maybe decided something wasn't looking right to his eyes, so drops out of that main pack and joins this trail of cars here at the back. Now, what they're doing back there is okay, Sam, but they've got to be careful that they don't somehow lose that main draft. If I were them, I'd get a little bit more nose to tail, get a little bit closer in line, just to make sure they can keep their speed up should they need to catch that main draft, because it's crazy how quick that you can lose the draft here at Dega without expecting it.
It's been interesting to watch this front pack. It just looks like through 1 and 2, they're staying 2 by 2, and then once they get into 3 and 4, they're just carrying so much speed that we start to see some 3 wide action, and it carries into the tri-oval, and then they all single file. Oh no! Maverick gets spun around! That's also Chris Edwards that was involved, as they are dropping back in the bottom. No yellow out, because they were correcting and spinning off track. We're still green.
Very unfortunate situation for both the 72 and the 17. I guess this would be a better time than any to remind our viewers that because this is a super speedway, these guys will have one fast repair. So both Chris Edwards and not Chris Noblet will be able to get a fast repair on those machines. However, they're going to be forced to play that hand a lot sooner than they would have liked here at Talladega. Very unfortunate way to start this race.
Well, due to that little bit of a spin we saw, it kind of scattered everyone up, and now we've only got about 10 cars here in this top pack when we used to have about 15 or more. They're now starting to pull away, and that second group is, oh no, more cars involved!
Oh!
That was Hubka, and also it looks like the 48, as well as, I'm trying to see who else. That was Chris Jones as well involved in that one, as that's going to bring out our first caution of the day.
Yeah, again, it was just another 2-car, maybe 3-car incident there with the 5 as well. Yeah, as you said, Chris Hubka looks like is what started that off. Not sure if it was probably just a bad bump down the backstretch, but it a much needed caution for the 17 and the I believe it was the 97 earlier that was involved in that.
Yeah, that was Chris Edwards and Noblet that were caught up in that first wreck. We're going to be taking a little bit of a different view here of this accident, seeing what happened up front. It just looked like hit the wrong bumper, Roberg onto the 5 machine, and that's what caused that wreck. We'll take a different view to see what happened to Leach and the rest of the crew. But an aggressive hit that took out 2 more, if not 3 more cars that need to use a fast repair now.
Yeah, it was a bad bump from the 98, but it's harder than it looks, folks, to be able to, you've got to run down the back straightaway, and you kind of get on that wrong side, the right side of the car in front, and it seems easy, it seems simple enough, just lifting and get back behind, but if you lift, you lose all that momentum you guys have had, so you're kind of just trying to weasel your way down to square up with that bumper, and unfortunately, he ends up hooking the 5 into the outside wall and collects a couple other cars with him.
We're seeing there the contact of Jones and Leach, and there just was no room for those guys once the 5 came down, but luckily there's one fast repair for everyone out here, so these cars that have been involved in early accidents can come in, get those repairs done, but that is kind of wasting their fast repair already.
Yeah, you're only 9 laps into a 94-lap event, so you're wanting to hang on to that should something happen later on in the race, which it inevitably will. But all those guys, as you said, that were involved in earlier incidents are going to be able to get their stuff repaired with that fast repair and be able to continue on here. Now, some of the guys that were involved in that wreck did not take that big a hit, so they might just consider repairing the optional damage that they might have acquired and continue on with that and save the fast repair. But some of those harder hits, we saw a couple of cars without the front bumpers, they'll definitely be using the fast repairs as they would not be able to get up to speed otherwise.
2 cars did not come into the pits this time. That's going to be Christopher Cook and Christopher Landy. They're going to be staying out on the tires that they were running already. It looked like the 44 machine of Christian Shepard is going to be only taking 2 tires and fuel, while everyone else behind him takes 4 tires and getting damage repaired.
I'm currently showing Christopher Takis is 2 laps down. He's currently getting a wave around now as we speak, so I'm not sure if he'll either be back 1 lap down or back on the lead lap. I didn't remember seeing him go a second lap down there to the leaders. Unless he was sitting on pit road for it. But nevertheless, he's going to get a wave around, going to get a lap back, and get closer to being back in this thing.
Yeah, I believe he did get 2 laps down, so this is him getting his 1 lap and trying to catch up to the pack. I do not believe he'll be getting his 2nd lap. He's going to be asking for another caution to get back onto the lead lap. But Takis on track, he's just going to be having to have a longer day than everyone else, hoping for another caution to get that wave around.
Should add as well that Christopher Takis is in a pretty good position points-wise, so this is not a race that's maybe detrimental to him, although he would like to get a solid finish out of this. But there's a lot of guys that are coming into this race pretty comfortably. Chris Scott, our pole sitter, being one of them, already having a win this season. Christopher Tate, Christopher Takis, and Chris Roberts and Chris Bass, your top 5 in points, all of which I believe do have a win, with maybe the exception of Chris Roberts. I cannot remember off the top of my head if he's won yet this season, but always a little bit of a stress relief whenever you come to a super speedway with a comfortable position in the points.
Yeah, I mean, it's always nice knowing that you don't really need a fantastic day at Talladega. These super speedway tracks are such wild cards compared to other racetracks, where you feel more consistent at other ones, while here you can just get caught up. I mean, you saw every single one of those instances that we saw before that yellow. It was just a car that wasn't prepared to get hit that spun it around, and it wasn't really their fault for that accident. So these cars need to know that they need a lot of luck if they're going to get the win here today.
Absolutely. And there's a little, I mean, there's always a little bit of skill too, Sam, that's required with super speedway. There are some fantastic super speedway racers out there that are just, they've mastered the art of the bump draft and the slingshot or what have you to get the job done here at Daytona and Talladega. There's definitely an art that's required to be solid at super speedways, and some guys have it, and some guys just it's like anywhere else, and myself included. And the guys that don't have it, I hate coming to super speedways because it's just such a, as you said, a wild card. But there's that factor of mastering the draft and knowing when to push, knowing when to lift off. It's these cars are so edgy in this draft, so one small mistake could be costly for yourself and 20 other guys.
Well, the lights are out on the pace car. We're going to be going green with 11 laps led. The Christophers are going to be the ones starting up front with Cook and Landy up front. So these guys are going to lead the way. But I mean, even being up front, we saw with Roberg, he was up front leading that high side, and he was one that got spun around to give us our first caution of the day. Got to be careful up here, even up front. Hoping that the guy behind you gives you a good, clean push as the pace car is pulling off to the side. And then we get through the tri-oval.
Restart zone isn't until about halfway down the tri-oval, so you won't normally see these guys accelerate until they clear the halfway point of the tri-oval. Most of the time, you'll see them wait to green to avoid getting that big jump on the restart. 95 will want the 4 up on him to give him a good push to green. Well, that's a little bit of a big jump there for
no one took off.
Yeah, it was a very slow start from second place on back. So Christopher Cook's going to have a big lead coming out of turn number 2, and that's not what he's going to want because it's going to allow everybody to go by him.
The sitting duck is the 95 machine, and we'll probably see the pass being made on the backstretch as everyone's trying to get back up to speed. Well, that 95 machine got almost a half a second gap as it looks like Bass got taken out again onto the high.
Whoa! Chris Scott below the yellow line. We'll see if he has to concede that position. He was not forced down there now, Sam. He made the move himself. We'll see what the ruling is there. See if they let that fly, but in real life, that would not be tolerated, and he would have to concede that position back to Cook. Oh, they wreck off the tri-oval into the pits. One car, it looks like it was the 90.
That's going to be Chris Newman. We're checking and looking. Newman looks like he got a little bit of damage on that left side, but he will continue running. But back out front, we're still green, even though the car was launched into the pit road.
No harm, no foul. And back up at the front, it looks like Chris Scott, that move is going to stand. So no out-of-bounds call there. We'll see if that kind of holds true coming down to the white flag. Because, Sam, we've seen so many times guys get forced down below the yellow line or just make a move below the yellow line, just so desperate to get their car across that stripe first and have the win taken away. So we'll see if that rule holds up coming down to the white flag here later on in this race.
Yeah, I mean, in real life, usually that yellow line is out of bounds area. You cannot advance your position when you cross that line. Once again, we're waiting to see the ruling, but looking like that Chris Bull car is able to stay up front, but all the action's been behind him, seeing who's going to be in second as they were 3 wide before, now still 2 wide.
Couple little groups have broken off behind this lead pack there as the 4 gets a good push from the 13 down the back straightaway, but a couple little groups have broken off. There's a 3-car pack behind this main pack, and then another small pack of our tail end lead lap cars here at the back entering turn 3 now. So again, it's just so important for those separate packs to not lose touch of the leaders, otherwise they're going to find themselves in trouble, especially if this thing stays green.
Yeah, it looks like it's Hedge, Williams, and Morris that is that first pack of 3 cars. And yes, they're in a pack of 3, but do you think that's going to cause them any issues?
Well, it might over the course of a run, but it's just a matter of if they can stay nose to tail, Sam, just to keep in touch with that lead pack. And just getting an update here, too, on the Chris Scott situation. It looks like he has been black flagged for that pass below the yellow line, so he will have to come in and serve what might just be a drive-through penalty, but either way, it's going to be detrimental for him in that 4 machine.
It really is. Hoping to see any type of accident or caution while he's coming to the pits and doing that drive-through, but That is going to cost the 4 car greatly. Once again, that as he's coming in now, the 4 machine going to be hoping to have a clean run in, hoping to have no penalties, but he slides it, doesn't even get into the pits. He's already sideways. That's to back up. That's losing a lot of time for that 4 machine.
It puts it into the wall, is going to even incur a little bit of damage. So that's just adding salt to the wound, but that's just a rough turn of events for Chris Scott there in that 4 machine. It was an unnecessary move there, Sam, if we're honest. You know, it's early into the race. He didn't need to go below the yellow line to make that pass. Whoa!
Takis gets right on the back bumper of, I believe that was Bass. But man, he came in hard. Actually, that was on the, I think that was Lawrence of the 01 machine. Just smashed the back bumper of the 01, and now he's got a little bit of back damage. Takis probably has some front end damage, could have some engine issues.
3 wide, about mid-pack there for the, looks like that's about 5th, 4th, and 6th that are 3 wide right there. A little bit of a blinking from our leader that's going to spook the rest of the field into a little bit of abrasive maneuvers, but all is sorted out. It looks like the penalty to Chris Scott is a hold penalty unless he's repairing the damage from his spin. I
would imagine that's damage that he's coming in to repair. I mean, yes, he backed into the wall, but that inside wall is not a safer barrier. It's just a solid wall, so that's a lot of damage that you could take just by hitting it softly.
Either way, it's not the way he wanted this race to go, but the silver lining is, Sam, we talked about it, he's won already this season. He is locked into the postseason chase. So this is not a must-win race by any means, nor is it a race that he needed to finish well in. You see him there getting back up to speed on the apron, getting passed by our leaders. He is currently scored. Looks like he's only a lap down at the moment, but that should put him about 2 or 3 laps down.
He's going to be 2 laps down now. The only car 2 laps down, all the way back last place, 23rd for the 4 machine. Went from first to last, but up front, it's going to be Christopher Papa and that Crisco car trying to lead the way, but he's stuck in the sucker hole in the middle.
Got a good group here forming 3 wide. Oh, they contact! Trouble in turn 3. Everybody piling in.
And it looks like that's the big one, as more piling into this action.
That's the whole back half of the pack. Chris Bass getting in at the last second. The 17, the 2, the 3, the 01.
The 71. 62 was luckily slow enough to get through. The 48 was not, who already used up his fast repair, I believe. So some of these guys back here have already used up their fast repairs, so this is the car that they're going to have to run at the end of this thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's just, again, I'm just so shocked at how racy these guys are getting 16 laps into this race. It's just, to me, it's unnecessary, Sam, but I mean, they've obviously got other plans and all the power to them, but I mean, this is going to take out a lot of cars here. As you said, a lot of them already used up that fast repair.
We're going to take a quick glance here. You're going to see Takis on the high line. Going to make a bold move to hit, I believe that's the 88 machine, and it just didn't go well as he just came in with a head of steam.
Was a little bit of net code there between the 46 and the 01, but definitely a little bit of change in lanes a bit. The 01 came up slightly, it seems, and netcode took it off from there. But I knew as soon as I saw that 46 get turned sideways, it was going to collect quite a few cars, and it absolutely did. It's just so hard to get woed up and miss wrecks that are in the corners, because Sam, you think that all the cars are, what goes up must come down, but they've got to lose their momentum first. And when they're getting hit in the doors, in the rear ends, and the noses when they're turned around, they're not losing momentum. They're gaining momentum with every bit of impact. So you never know when those cars are going to slide down. So it's so hard to miss wrecks here in the corners.
And especially when you're coming to the corner, you're not slowing down. You're stuck where you're at. It's very difficult to change lanes, and you're seeing here with 71 machine, there's nowhere for him to go as he runs into Takis, and then just goes for a ride. A lot of these machines, once you're coming into a corner, you pick your line. It's very hard to change your lane while in the corner here, and you're seeing the disaster of the first big one.
Couple guys that we were talking about that had already used their fast repair. The 48, Chris Leach was involved in that first no caution incident. He used his fast repair when that happened, and he's sitting on pit road without a nose. Chris Hubka in the 5 also involved in that. The 17 of Chris Noblet. A lot of days have just ended with that wreck, and at least in my mind, it was unnecessary. But sometimes that's the way super speedway goes, Sam.
Relooking, I believe this is going to give Chris Edwards the lucky dog and put him back onto the lead lap, which is going to hurt Christopher Takis. He was involved in that accident, so I don't believe he's not going to get the lucky dog. But if you're involved in an accident, can you still take the wave around?
iRacing says no. However, I mean, the good news about this is that there are admins and this is a league race. So they do choose to override that if they can, but it doesn't look like that's the situation as he's on pit road now. Usually if you're getting the wave around, you wouldn't come in and pit this time. So I don't think Chris Edwards is going to get that wave around. It could be Chris Takis might have been able to get a lap back there as I think he got woed up. Or no, excuse me, he was involved in that wreck. So Chris Scott might have gotten the lap back. He might have been 3 laps down. He's currently 2 laps down now at the moment.
There were 2 cars 1 lap down. That car that was 1 lap down with Takis was Chris Edwards, and I believe he's already gone around.
Yeah, so it does look like he's back on the lead lap. So it looks like he was able to avoid that. And if he wasn't, then the admins are just saying that it's fine for him to get his lap back, which is good. And he'll be able to be back in contention. And now, remember, he was in our first spin that didn't bring out a yellow, so it's a good recovery for him. We don't have a way to track who has used the fast repair and who hasn't. So it's kind of just a guessing game that we'd have to play. But we are able to recall for a select few individuals who have and haven't used the fast repairs.
Yeah, it's one of those, I think he was involved in a wreck earlier type of tactic. Still in the pits is going to be the 9 machine finally coming out. Had some damage, got that repaired up as best as he could. But cars that are in the pits, that is going to be Chris Noblet. He is the one that is still in the pits and does not look like he'll be coming back into this thing. And if he does, he's not going to have a front bumper.
Yeah, and then that if it's a scenario where you're not locked into the postseason and your day is done early, all you can do, Sam, is just ride around and get and score as many points as you can. It sucks when that's the scenario you're in, but that's what you have to do. You have to make sure you give yourself some sort of a shot to be in this postseason.
Well, there are some drivers that came in, but there are a few that stayed out. It looks like Chris Roberg, Chris Otto, Christian Shepard, Christopher Papa, and Chris Jenkins all stayed out. And also Chris Jones stayed out as well. Everyone else came into the pits, so we'll have to wait and see how they go with that. Pace car lights are off, and we're going to have to be going green here. 21 laps ran here at 94, only the second caution of the day. Top 6 did not pit. And the one car I'm worried about is going to be the 44 machine of Christian Shepard. He does not have a front bumper, and I don't know if he knows that or not. But that 44 machine going to be staying out in that Chris Light machine, and we'll see how well he can do as the pace car pulling off, and we're going to be coming through the tri-oval. Logan, I'm surprised to see that Christian Shepard is still out there in 4th place with no front bumper.
Yeah, it's a little shocking too. I just picked up on that as the pace car pulled off. So we'll see how on earth that thing will be able to get back up to speed in that 44 machine. As long as there's no engine damage there, Sam, and he's able to stay in the draft as we go back to green, he might be able to maintain speed, but it looks like he's getting left behind there on the top. So,
there is some engine damage for that 44 machine as he is still on the high side, holding everyone up, and they're all going down. But he's going to go down as well, and now he's blocking the inside.
Able to get around him now is the 37.
Up front, Chris Otto able to make the pass with Christopher Cook, but Cook going to be on the outside, and then he got Papa on the inside helping out Otto. And then it looks like Papa, I mean, yeah, it's looking like Papa going to be helping out, but Cookie stuck on the outside.
One thing to take note of here too, Sam, is we had a relatively small field when we took the green. Only 23 cars started this race, which I mean that's a fairly large field by any stretch of the imagination for a league race. But when you come to Talladega or Daytona, that field can be very, very small here in a blink of an eye. You have one big wreck, and that's a lot of cars taken out of this thing, as we're seeing is the case already with this lead pack being so small. It's a lot of damaged race cars back around mid-pack has stretched this field out.
Yeah, looking back, it looks like this is only 8 machines still stuck here in the top group, but it looks like Chris Jones is just on the tail end, luckily just nipping at that draft. But up front, it's Chris Otto still holding the lead all the way back quite a bit. That's when you'll see the 09 machine of Christopher Lawrence, who's got a 3-pack machines, hoping that they can catch up to this 8-car pack.
Whoa, there's a little bit of contact back in that. Oh, got 2 cars into the wall, trouble in turn 2. 2 cars hard into the wall. It was the 95 of Chris Cook, and I believe the 13.
Yeah, that was
Papa.
The 13 car trying to get back up to speed, but Cook, he is not looking good. He's drifting on back. That machine has heavy damage.
I was going to mention there was a little bit of contact coming out of the tri-oval between Chris Bass and somebody else. It might have been Chris Edwards. And right as that happened, there was that contact in turn 2 between the 13 and the 95. So that's really spread this field out here now, Sam.
What once was a pack of 8 is now down to a pack of 5 as Chris Jones losing the draft. And now at the tail end is going to be Chris Newman. And these guys are just trying to stay in line, pull away, and make it their own race with 71 laps to go. I'm looking at the fuel. I don't think any of these guys can make it to the end here, but it's going to be close for looks like Cordova and Newman, who were part of the cars that pit on this last pit stop, but our top 3 did not pit. They're going to have to come in at least one more time if we stay green.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how fuel mileage plays out, because you're usually able to stretch it a lot farther than you think at super speedways, especially if you're in a pack, because of the draft being such a factor. You're able to drive around at maybe half quarter throttle. But now that this pack is so spread out, these guys are going to have to be a lot more wide open than maybe they would like to be able to catch back up and form back up into a pack. So the fuel strategy here is going to be interesting to see. Should we stay green?
Yeah, I mean, the fuel strategy is going to be one of those things we're going to have to watch out for, but it's going to be a fun race. I mean, the fuel window that we were looking at, I believe it was 75 laps for these cars. And just doing some quick math, it looks like Cordova and Newman, they would be about 2 laps over that 75 lap marker. So do you think with them running in the back of this 5-car pack, they'll be able to save 2 laps?
It's tough. It's hard to save 2 laps of fuel anywhere you're at, but it's amazing what being in the draft and running at half throttle will do. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's going to take a lot of work to do so. So we'll have to wait and see should this run continue on like this.
Cars that we were wondering if they were going to catch up. It looks like Christopher Morris able to make this now, and as well as Chris Jones. What once was a 5-car pack, now a 7-car pack, with Chris Jones just lingering behind about 7/10 back, and he's still in the draft with these guys. He's just not on the back bumper of anyone.
Yeah, and then meanwhile, a little bit further behind him, about maybe 3 seconds behind him, we've got our second group led by Chris Edwards and Chris Bass. They've formed up on the inside line there a little bit and are trying to get caught back up to the lead group. So we've still got some pretty competitive cars in this field, Sam. It's just a matter, these guys have got to settle down. It's still so early in this race. They've got to settle down, file in, and just ride for a little bit. Let this race play out. You can't win this race right now. You could barely win it in turn 1 on the white flag. So this race is not over until they come through the tri-oval to take the checkered flag. So there's still plenty of racing left to do. These guys just got to file in, calm down a little bit, group back up, and just let the race come to them.
Cars that are 1 lap down, that's going to be Christopher Cook and Takis, as well as Papa. It looks like Papa and Cook were able to come into the pits. They're now running back by themselves, both of them. And looking where Takis is, he's by himself as well. And the last car that's in pit road, 9 laps down, that's going to be Chris Noblet, who is still getting repairs done. It looks like the 44 machine just got done with his repairs of coming down in the pits. And that, honestly, the 44 machine is why we have 2 packs of the leaders and the second pack all trying to group up, just because of the fact that the 44 was making everyone else lose their momentum at the start, and the guys that were on the bottom were able to just take off.
And you got to wonder too, Sam, if maybe he didn't think he was as damaged as he was. He didn't. I don't see that he's running with an in-sim spotter, so there's nobody really to tell him that, hey, you don't have a front end on that machine, dude. So he might not have thought he was as damaged as he was, and thought he was still healthy enough to continue on at full speed. And obviously that was not the case. So he's found himself, as you said, a lap down with that damage repaired. It looks like he used his fast repair, so now he's going to have to bide his time and wait for another caution.
Yeah, I mean, when you have damage, I always hear the term checking your RPMs to see if you have, or you're low on damage that way. Do you think that there could have been a way for him in car to see if he was low on damage? I mean, low on RPM?
Absolutely. If you push the clutch in and see what your RPM is at idle, then that's as good as indication as any. These cars idle at 2,000 RPM, so if you push the clutch in, or if you're not running with a clutch, you shift down to neutral and just coast and see what you're idling at. That's a good indication to tell whether or not you've got any sort of internal damage that's going to slow your pace down. Obviously, I don't want to jump to any conclusions, but it doesn't seem that check was made on that 44 machine and thought he was still up to speed.
It doesn't look like it, as all the action seems to be in the back as we're starting to see the top side. Christopher Morris thinking about making it too wide, but he's all by himself. You have to go all the way back to 9th place with Chris Bass and this second group, all now too wide. They're no longer in a line with what they were before, trying to gain on time. But looking on the difference, they're not gaining on this second pack at all. They have actually lost a tenth, if anything, on this first pack of cars.
No, yeah, and they won't gain as long as they stay side by side like this. It's the side draft that's going to come off these cars is just going to do nothing but slow them down. So if they want to catch that lead group, they need to be single file, especially because that lead group is single file. If the lead group was side by side like this second group is, then it might be possible. But running side by side like this will not catch that lead group in any time.
Watching to see as they're still side by side, but up front it's looking like Christopher Morris is the only car that's thought about making it on the high side. Take that back, that's actually the 44 machine that our leaders are passing. Our leaders are all staying on the inside due to the fact that we're kind of in that lingering period. We're going to take ourselves in a side by side action. You won't miss any of the action here as we go side by side.
Hello,
And you just saw right there, pit stops are underway for some of these drivers that needed to pit one more time. And so we're seeing some of the action. And, Logan and I were talking under that break, and we were curious on what's going on with the second pack. And I think we kind of know what's going on. All of them are trying to save fuel, and they lost about almost 3 seconds on this lead pack. And they've all were part of that cars that pitted on that last caution that are just on the brink of making it to the end, but it's going to be close.
Yeah, and we kind of drew that conclusion there, Sam, when we saw, we look back there, and usually when you see the second pack fall behind like this, you see the second car in line usually all over the back bumper of the lead car trying to get that head of steam built up so they can catch the lead pack. But in this group, we're not seeing that, which to our conclusion says that maybe they're trying to save fuel to make sure that they can make it to the end. So when you're leaving that gap between bumpers like you're seeing them do, that's usually means they're running about half to quarter throttle and trying to not push that engine so hard so they're able to save what little fuel they have left.
This front group, there are only, out of the top 5 cars that are together, there's only 3 cars that could possibly make it to the end, but you're seeing more cars coming into the pits. That's going to be Roberg as well as Chris Jones, and it's going to be interesting to see as our top 3 got to figure out how to save fuel to make it to the end. But with it only being 2 cars with the lap machine, and actually 2 lap machines here with our leaders, got to wonder, is there enough cars now to keep this little lead that they have of about 8 and 2/10 lead? Is it enough time, and can we see the second pack catch up to this group before?
Yeah, it's a matter of strength and numbers. So I think with how spread out this lead 4 are, or lead 2 rather, but this lead pack of 4, as you see the 3 come in by himself.
Oh, that is a risky move.
That's a game over right there. I think he does have a group coming in behind him, as you see majority of that second pack come in, but I don't know, maybe we'll see the 3 wait and let this group catch up to him, but it's going to cost him all that track position as he slides his box there, as you see. But one thing I want to touch on here too, Sam, boy, he really made a mess of that pit stop, the 3 did. But one thing you don't want to do is have mistakes like that 3 did or speed on pit road, and that's exactly what the 18 of Chris Cody Jenkins did. He was one of the first cars to come in. He sped entering his box. He had to come back down through and do a drive-through. He is now 1 lap down.
That is an awful time to see. You don't want to make those simple mistakes. Here's the thing, though, with Morris in that 3 machine. Yes, he slid. Yes, it was a mistake, but he's still with a large pack of cars that he probably would have been away from if he came in normally.
Yeah, so I mean, you got to look at the silver lining, and I had the idea too that maybe he would wait and let this group of cars that came in behind him just catch up, finish their services, and catch up, so that he wouldn't be out there by himself. But it looks like he's found a friend in the 9 car of Chris Wilson, and he's going to be able to have some sort of tow with that group of 3 behind him. But right now, Sam, this does not look like a super speedway race at all. The field is all sorts of spread out. We're waiting to see where this will cycle out, or how this will cycle out once these pit stops are done, what our lead pack will look like and what the rest of the field will look like.
4 cars have not pitted yet. That's going to be in our lead, Chris Newman, all by himself with a 10-second gap lead. And he's got lap cars in front of him that are kind of his draft buddies at the moment. And that's going to be Papa, as well as the 44 machine of Shepard. So these lap machines kind of Newman's best friends at the moment.
Yeah, and looking at Chris Newman in that 90 machine, he did pit on the last caution, which did come roughly 20 laps ago. And you compare that to when these cars, the cars ahead of him last pit, that's Kristen Shepard and Christopher Papa, they also seem to have pit on that last caution. So in a way, these guys are all kind of on the same cycle. So he does have friends in that group with those 2 lap cars. Chris Newman does, so he will have help coming to pit road. But he's all by himself in terms of lead lap traffic, as he said, 10 seconds ahead. So we'll see how this shapes out here over the course of the run.
Oh, that was the 01 machine that absolutely ran over the cone That is going to be Lawrence, who's completely sideways in the
Fun.
pits. That is going to be awful for Leach, who had to drive around him. So that one machine, not the pit stop he wanted to have, as we're moving back up front. That was 4th place coming into the pits, and that was a scheduled stop. Now we've only got our top 3 that need to come into the pits, and that's going to be Landy as well as Daniels and Newman. And it's just these guys are in such weird positions because you got the 2 machine of Daniels and the 71 of Landy. They're right next to one another. But then 11 seconds, almost 12 seconds now, is Newman, who's just been gapping himself from this pack of 2. Well, it's actually a bigger pack now. It's just 3 cars pulling away from everyone else.
Yeah, and I mean that can happen when you've got a single file line like these guys do. You're able to pull that gap out. You know, you're making the most of the draft, and it's gonna allow for more speed. You see 200 mile an hour entering turn 3 versus what this big lead pack is gonna do. They're only at about 195 entering turn 3. So a 5 mile an hour difference at Talladega will go a long way over the course of a run, and we're seeing that right now.
We're seeing the second pack of cars. It's a lot of machines that are a lap down, and it's difficult for them to start pulling away from anyone else. As you're just seeing, I mean, back in 4th place, you got Chris Otto with Takis, who's a lap machine, and they're trying their best to catch back up, but they're on the lead lap. You also got Chris Roberg, and he's in 5th place. He's got himself with the 7 machine of Cordova, and they're on the lead lap, but 1 lap down is going to be Morris, who's running pretty far back, but he's the first car 1 lap down, and he's got himself the 9 machine of Wilson with him.
Yeah, I'm only seeing 6 cars scored on the lead lap, which is just, that's so uncommonly rare for a super speedway to have this many cars off the lead lap. From 7th on back to 15th are all cars 1 lap down. So I believe when Chris Newman when Chris Newman pits, all those guys should cycle back out onto the lead lap, but that would still leave the rest of the top 4 on the lead lap as well. So it'll be interesting to see how this cycles out and what becomes of those guys that are all caught a lap down.
Well, right now, it looks like 6th and 5th are under fire. It looks like our leader just caught up to them. What once was a pack of 3 is now a pack of 5, as Newman now pulling in the pits.
Yeah, he's coming in now to make his scheduled stop, and it looks like he's actually by himself, so this could hurt him.
Yeah, he is all by himself. The lap cars he once was with, they did not come with him. It looks like as well as Landy and Daniels coming in together, so that's going to be a 2-car tandem. And that should be given the lead to the 88 machine of Chris Otto, who should be good to go. And he's got Christopher Takis right on his back bumper.
Yeah, now these guys can make it to the end on fuel. They don't need to worry about making another stop. We're working lap 46, going to be coming to lap 47. So they would be good to the end of this race in terms of fuel. But obviously, should a caution come out, I think you would see guys come in to top off on fuel just for that little added insurance, that reassurance, and the fresh tires as well, because believe it or not, that does make a difference.
And you're seeing right now the transfer of the lead now going to Chris Otto, while Newman on these all by himself there on the apron. And that is going to be a tough time for that 90 machine, hoping to see friends as the 90 machine getting passed by more cars. Well, now we got to look to see what the battle's going to be for 1st to 2nd, as now it's Chris Roberg, who's about 4.5 seconds back from Chris Otto.
Yeah, and with that 90 pitting, it did unlap a lot of cars, so we do now have 13 cars on the lead lap. But Sam, we are just so spread out right now. There is not the biggest pack that we're seeing on track. I'd have to say is starting at 9th place with Chris Edwards. I mean, there's the potential for a large pack to form up there, but it's just little clusters of cars all throughout the pack here.
Yeah, you got the group of 3 here with Chris Edwards, Reese, and Hupka. But then you go back up to, I think that's for 3rd place. I mean, it's 2nd and 3rd. You got 4 cars here. You got 2 lap machines with the 2 cars on the lead lap. And they're staying in line, but they're actually losing time. What once was 4.5 seconds, now over 5 seconds on Auto. They're now a group of 4 that are running to clean together.
And like we saw with the 90 of Chris Newman, now Chris Auto all by himself in this pack in terms of lap traffic. Is the next car on track that would be for position is Chris Roberge, who's just now coming into the tri-oval in this pack of 4 back here. Again, it's all lap cars with the exception of Chris Corveau, who is running in 3rd. So this is a very interesting scenario here at Talladega. And honestly, Sam, sorry, I'm a little caught off guard by it. This is not the kind of race I was expecting to see.
It's all right. We have Seth Cole up here doing controls for backup. So that's why, we're both S's. It makes sense why you get mixed up with us. But the difference that I'm seeing from this lead pack of, Chris Auto and the lap machines with him compared to that second group with Chris Roberge is the fact that the car behind Chris Auto, which is Chris Vertakis, has been staying right on the back bumper of the 88 this whole entire time, only coming down here or there just to get fresh air as he got a little squirrely there in the tri-oval.
Yeah, that tri-oval the car gets really light through that tri-oval, and if you're not paying attention, it does catch you off guard, as we saw with Chris Takis, and you can bet Chris Auto was a little tense looking at that in his mirror, like, please, God, do not come up and hook my right rear.
Oh, yeah, those are one of the moments that that's where you're hoping for luck to kick in, and it did there. Looking throughout the rest of the field, I think one of the biggest packs that I can see is that Chris Edwards pack that you were talking about. They now have a 5th car with them. That's going to be Landy joining in, as well as Daniels. So you've got 7th through 11th now together, but the only problem is they're about almost 27 seconds away from our leader.
Yeah, and this is similar to what I was talking about earlier at the top of the show, Sam, where you've got the pack that's going to be a little more conservative and going to make sure they're there at the end of the race. Yeah, you're going to be around at the end of the race, but this is the hole you find yourself in, 26 seconds behind the leader in Chris Edwards' group. And it's just not the place you want to be. We're lap 50 out of 94, so there's still some time left. But this is we're gearing up on crunch time here, where guys are going to start trying to be a little more aggressive. And when you want to be a little more aggressive, they're not able to do that in this kind of pack. So they've got to figure something out and try to make up some time some way, somehow.
Yeah, the 7th through 11th pack, they're not in line, and Chris Bass, the fastest one in that pack, trying to get up front and to pull this group along. They're just not be able to get into really a rhythm here, as our top 5 all running below 50 seconds. Our leader is running 28.9 seconds right now, being pushed by Christopher Takis. But everyone else is running anywhere from 50s or higher than that. Chris Newman all by himself running 51 seconds. So you're seeing the difference between by yourself and being in a pack of cars.
And it's just I'm just not seeing a lot of hustle from the guys that are behind, because at this point you want to be all over the back bumper of the lead car in whatever pack you're in, and I'm not seeing that anywhere. This group of cars back here with Chris Bass, Chris Edwards, and Chris Daniels, they're all over the place right now, swapping lanes and trying to figure out where they want to run, but you can't do that right now. Not in this, unless there's something that we don't know, Sam. Maybe these guys think that the strategy is going to fall their way and they're going to cycle out to be the lead pack, and they're not wanting to take any risks. But as far as I'm concerned, they're good to the end. There won't be any more scheduled green flag stops.
Yeah, all these guys are banking on a caution to come out, but hopefully you're not the reason for the caution. But everyone is so spread out, it is difficult to make any type of moves, as we've got 13 cars on the lead lap. Last car on the lead lap is going to be Landy, actually, right now in that 71 machine. And this is the biggest pack of cars that we have, but they're not in line. They're not gaining time. They're losing time on the car in 6th place, which is, it's Chris Newman all by him lonesome, and these guys aren't gaining on him.
Yeah, and that just that goes to show you right there, all the bobbing and weaving, what that does to you. The fastest that you'll see that 90 car go by himself is maybe 191 miles an hour if he holds a perfect line all the way around this place, entering the corners. But right now, running a consistent 188 through the tri-oval, and you look back at the pack, They are catching him gradually. They are running faster just because of the sake of the draft. But I mean, they could have caught him by now and picked him up. And strength and numbers is we got a very slow car here on the apron is the 44 Christian Shepherd again.
Christian Shepherd, slow and looking to see the reason for that. Looked like he just came through the pit road to take another pit stop for that 44 machine. And now he'll be trying to get back on pace, but he is 3 laps down. So his day is not going the way he wanted it to. And, he was part of that last caution that we saw and had a lot of front end damage. Didn't get fixed up, and he's just been behind the bubble ever since.
Yeah, it's just one of those days. Sometimes when it rains, it pours here at Super Speedway, and that's usually the way it goes for me, which is why I can't stand coming to him. But just one of those things. Sometimes that's the way racing goes and the way Super Speedway racing goes. And was talking about it earlier too, where if you're in that scenario, all you can do is ride around and race for points. Man, it got very hairy. I don't know if we caught that on the broadcast there, but that was the 62 of Christopher Reese and Chris Daniels. Had a bit of a moment there with the 01. I thought for sure we were going to see another big wreck there in 1 and 2.
And it looks like Leach and Reese still getting real close to one another. They got to be careful not to make contact, but they're trying to get in line. And once they all get in line, stay in really bumper to bumper, and really got to be patient here. You've got now going to be 39 laps to go for these guys. They are about, they're about 4, almost 5 seconds away from catching up to Newman. Once they pick him up, there'll be another car to attach to this group. And then after Newman, they are almost 14 seconds back from 5th place. So they need to get in line and get in a hurry, as they are the biggest group out here. They can make a lot of time if they just stay in line. Yeah,
and I think you're absolutely right. They're by far the biggest group. So just stay single file, get up there, push each other, make some time, because the last time I checked, the interval was maybe about 5 laps to go, and it was, I think, 23 seconds. It's grown now 10 seconds. It's now up to 34 seconds. So it's grown 11 seconds since I last checked the interval. So they've been making no time up whatsoever when they absolutely could. They've got the strength. They've got the horsepower. Put it to work. Get moving and get back up to that group. You've got the cars to do it. There's not a single damaged car in that group with the exception of the 44 at the tail end of it.
We're going to do a quick rundown as we are 37 laps to go in this 94-lap race here at the Chrisabama Race 250. Up front, it's going to be Chris R. Otto, who's been leading this thing since the fuel run cycle went through. He's had Christopher Takis, a lap down car on his back bumper, pushing him and trying to gain as much time on everyone else. They've got a couple of friends around then that none of these cars that's around that 88 who's leading this pack, none of them are lead lap cars. They're all lap machines. So you're hoping that none of them make any accidents as the 88's pulling in.
Very interesting. I was certain that they were good for fuel. They're not running on full tanks, Sam. They're at 75% fuel load, but I still thought they had enough to go to the distance. So I think we've got to put our foot in our mouths here, I think, Sam, because you're absolutely right. I think maybe we're not done with the cycles here.
And that's going to give now the lead to Christopher Morris, who's a part of a bigger group here. And Morris has Wilson as well as Roberg with them. It's going to be that 13 machine below them in that Crisco car, the formal, what used to be the Geico car, now the Crisco car. And behind them, they've got the 7 machine of Chris Cordova, who's going to be holding these guys up. They're not in line, so they're losing time on the cars behind them, but they've got a 20-second gap lead to Chris Bass, who has a line of machines, and all these cars are on the lead lap practically.
Yeah, now these guys have it figured out. They're formed up, and they're starting to make up some time. Granted, we did see the leader just dive in the pit road, but now it'll be interesting to see if as we were talking about earlier, maybe these guys knew something we didn't, and it seems to be the case because I think these guys are still trying to stretch it on fuel, like the possibility we talked about. But again, I thought we were good to the end. I didn't think they had to make another stop. So we'll see. They're coming to lap 60 this time by. So
Looking to see Chris Otto all by his lonesome, but he's still got Takis in front of him, so still has a friend at least. But he is the last car on the lead lap, 13th place right now, about almost 5.5 seconds away from this big old group in front of him. Next car he's going to be trying to chase down is going to be Chris Newman, and you can see that really small pack of two. That is going to be Otto and Takis, but up front they are side by side with Morris and Papa. And you got to wonder, I'm surprised that they are still side by side and not trying to continue to run away from these guys, but they kind of aren't losing time on this pack behind them.
no, but I gotta wonder as well too, is if these guys have to come in and pit, are they good to the end? Because now that we saw Otto dive on the pit road, was he the only one that for some reason couldn't make it to the end, or is that the scenario with a lot of these guys not being able to make it to the end? So, if these top three pit, it will cycle Chris Bass out to the lead. Excuse me, if the top four pit, it'll cycle Chris Bass out to the lead. Doesn't look like they're planning to come this time by if they need to. I'm looking, and the last time that Christopher Morse pit was on lap 39. Now, again, I'm not sure, obviously, what the pit window is with the fuel load that they had, but I'm still under the impression that I would think they're good to the end, especially if they're in a pack.
Well, I'm looking at when cars came into the pits last time. The car that's up here in the top 10 that was the last car to pit would actually be a car that pit 16 laps ago, Christopher Landy, in that 71 machine, that Chris By car. He is the one who, out of this big old group of machines, is the one that could go the furthest out of all of them. So he's someone to watch out for if this front pack can't make it to the end. But yeah, the also factor we got to look at is that Chris Otto was leading that front pack from start to finish on that stint. So he might have been just using a lot more fuel than what everyone else was.
Yeah, and that could be a factor as well. When you're the lead pack in a group, or the lead car in a pack, you're punching the hole in the air for everybody else behind you. So you're using more fuel, as we see. Oh, I thought the 90. I thought I think that was the 72. I thought he was ducking on the pit road, but he might have just had a little bit of a moment off of 4. Regarding our leader, or who was our leader, Chris Morris, he and Chris Bass pit on the same lap. They both pit on lap 39. So I think Chris Morris actually came to pit road that time. If I'm
something happened to Morris. We're going to do a quick rewind to figure out what happened to the 3 machine, as there's not any action going on. But we need to know what happened to Morris, because he was up front battling, and now he's all by his lonesome.
Looks like I went back and rewound in the replay, and he blinked out quite a bit. So it looks like it was some technical difficulties that maybe froze him on track and lost him his pack. He's still blinking here now as I'm focused on him. So
there he goes, blinks away, and he's gone for quite a long time. With him being the lead car, you don't know where he's going to be at, and yeah, he could be stuck on track, or he'll pop up inside of someone, and that's a risk that you don't want to take. Usually cars, when they blink this much, they'll pull to the side, let the cars go on by.
iRacing has a pretty good system where if it's something if it's a severe technical issue, I believe it freezes you on track. However, you're disappeared to everybody else, but it freezes you in place on track, so that whenever you do sync back up with the session, you're not in anybody's way, if that makes sense. You might startle some people, but you come back ghost, and you're back. You're in the same position on the track that you were when you disconnected, if that makes sense. So it's an interesting scenario for him. Unfortunate, but it looks like he's going to be able to continue on for the time being, as this big pack is really forming up, starting to get racy. Look at Chris Otto in the middle. Made a little bit of contact with the 44.
It looks like Otto and Takis ready to be the lead car for another pack, as they are right bumper to bumper on each other, stuck on the inside line. And you can see Otto there with that light blue machine, and that Chris Nation car on the inside, pushing each other, trying to get to that Chris in front of them, and just trying to show the way. If anything, they know how to get a lead, as Auto now pushing up top, and we're seeing cars coming to the pits.
This would be Chris Bass, Chris Edwards, and Chris Daniels, followed by a select few others coming on the pit road. So we were mistaken. They did have one more stop that they needed to make, and Kim's on lap 66. So we'll see if this will be enough to make it to the end.
These cars were coming into the pits around 25 laps or so. There's 30 laps when they came across the line. Now 29 laps to go. It's gonna be close. As far as we've seen on these Grand Flag runs, they've only been going for 25 laps. Can they make it to the end here? Or are they going to be close enough, as it looks like Otto came into the pits 8 laps ago, but he's got his friend with him. That's Christopher Takis, and it looks like Landy now behind them. Landy can go further than everyone else, but he's going to be by himself if he comes here further than everyone else.
Yeah, so you take a look at the guys that just pit. For example, I'm looking at Chris Bass. His stop prior to the one we just saw him make was on lap 39. He came into pit on lap 65. So that's going to do some quick math. 35-ish laps?
That would put him in the range to make it to the end. So
yeah,
he's got to feel good about that one. But the one thing is that he was running in behind everyone else, saving fuel. Chris Otto not saving fuel. He's still being pushed by Takis. And you got to wonder, are they going to make a switch at any point to maybe give Otto a chance to save fuel, or do they feel comfortable in the state that they're in?
So I was way off on that calculation. It was actually only about 25 laps there, Sam, from lap 39 to 65. So
yeah, I thought it was around 25 laps that I was seeing these guys come in. So it's kind of making me a little nervous that they got to go another 5 more laps than when they've been coming in.
Yeah, so we could be looking at one more scheduled stop here, as they're working lap 67 right now. The leaders, Chris Otto is our leader. He's actually, working lap 68. So by that measure, we'd be looking at a stop around lap 85, roughly. Lap 90.
It would be around lap 80, I believe 88, 89 is when we could possibly be seeing cars come in, or they can come in sooner than that, just get a little bit of a splash with about 25 laps to go. So that would give them another about 3 more laps. Then we could see some guys come in, get a splash, and be good all the way to the end.
If I'm in this race right now, I would much rather have a caution be thrown in here, just to make sure you don't have that short dash to the finish. Having to make a green flag pit stop with less than 10 to go is just, it really throws a wrench in things and makes it, very interesting for you or I. But as a driver, that's just a really unfortunate situation as to the way that works out.
Looking at the fuel right now, our top 3, Chris Otto and Christopher Landy, they are in the same group. Otto's leading it, Landy is behind them, and then you got to go back another 7 seconds. Well, you'll see Chris Newman here with some lap machines just cruising around. It's then when you get to the 98 machine of Chris Roberg, who we've seen him come in with that last group that pit, but will he make it to the end? He'll be the first car. He is 16 laps away from our leader, and he's got a whole bunch of lap machines around him.
So we're getting back into that weird window where we're only seeing 7 cars on the lead lap, Christopher Morse being the last one there. But once this final pit stop is made, it'll be handed over. The lead group, first car lap down is Chris Bass in the 97, 2 cars behind Chris Otto. And the rest of the group that he was with, I don't know what happened to the rest of the pack that he was with, because Chris Bass was with a gargantuanly sized pack.
Yeah, it looked like it's the pack of cars that came in cleanly and had good runs, and then the rest of the pack are all the cars that had issues on pit road, either sliding or just getting in weirdly. As just looking at the pit times, some of them are a little bit longer than what this first group in front of them of Morris, Cordova, Wilson, and Roberg. These guys came in and have a decent gap compared to everyone else, and I think it's just because they had cleaner pit stops.
Looking back now at our third place guy, I had him there for a second. Chris Newman now is going to cycle out to be third right now. He's now in a what you could call a little tango. Actually, the 17 was with him. He's now pulls off. So Chris Newman back by himself again in third. He's going to get picked up, though, Sam, by a pack here entering the tri-oval of what looks to be lap traffic.
Yeah, that's going to be Chris Roberg's little group, I believe, that's going to pick him up. And so it's going to be Chris Roberg's in the middle of that group trying to save fuel. And then you got Scott as well as, I believe that's the 18 machine of Jenkins, it is. And then behind them is Chris Jones. So this pack of four, they look like they're trying to save fuel, the most of them. And I would imagine that's what Roberg's... Oh, Bennett, I just see Scott gets a little out of shape. Get tapped a little bit and still able to go. No caution. A fantastic save by that four machine, but it breaks up that pack of four.
I think he blew up down the back straightaway there, Sam. I saw a puff of black smoke, and he was all out of shape. What a save, though, from that four machine. That thing was wrecked 2.5 times. Unbelievable.
This is a replay we're going to see, and yeah, if you see the puff of smoke, his car's going to... There it is right now. It blew up. An amazing save with having no engine help there. Now that four machine's going to have to limp his way back up front. That was your quick replay of the four machine, and he's off course as you're seeing him trying to limp it in, but I don't know if he's going to make it to the pits.
Yeah, he's going to stop very short, and when you have a blown engine, it's not easy to coast. It's not like running out of fuel. That thing just comes to a grinding halt a lot quicker than it does if it was an empty tank. So he's going to come to a stop on the apron. It shouldn't bring out a yellow, but it could be hazardous should a group of cars come into pit behind him.
I'd imagine that four machine's going to take a tow once he comes to a complete stop. And I don't know if that four machine has any more quick repairs. I believe he already used it up. That could be the end of Chris Scott's day. And with Chris Heiblet still out there, with how many laps are left, I believe the four car will keep his position.
Yes, Chris Noblet is essentially done for the day. He's 37 laps down. Chris Scott was the next one closest to him. He was 4 laps down, so his day is effectively over. But yet again, as we touched on before, it's not really going to hurt him very much. He is locked into our postseason with his wins, so it's a loss you can kind of take on the chin and just move on with.
All right, here's the information that we have right now. Christopher Landy still running out there. He's been on track for 29 laps, but he hasn't been the lead car. He's been saving fuel this whole entire time. I don't think we're going to be seeing this 71 make it to the end just based off of how everyone else has been pitting. We know that everyone else back from Roberg on back are good to the end as the 71 machine comes into the pits.
Yep.
But he comes to the pits with coming to 30 laps to go, so everyone else from Roberg back should be good to the end. It's going to be close for them, but I don't think Otto's going to make it.
Yeah, you got to make it to it is a 25 lap window. We have confirmed that now. So you've got to make it to 25 laps to go before you come in and pit again. And as he said, I think this is too big of a stretch to stretch fuel, especially at a track it's 100% wide open in the grand scheme of things. There's no lifting here in the corners. So I don't think we could see him making this to the end, but we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. He is going to be by himself, so he's going to lose time regardless.
So we know the 71 machine of Christopher Landy will make it to the end. I believe from Berg on back, they're good as well. The question is, will the 88 of Otto, who's had Christopher Takis on his back bumper this whole entire time, can he make it to the end? It's going to be close for this 88 machine. I mean, quick math that's going on, that's going to be 30 some odd laps, more than 30. I think that's 37 laps that the 88 machine has to go, and we have not seen that once, even with help from caution laps.
Yeah, and I think if you want any chance in heck to be able to make it to the end, you can't be the lead car. I mean, you just can't. You're using the most fuel in that scenario. You're wide open. You do have the hammer down. You have that pedal to the floor because you're punching the hole in the air. So you're burning the most fuel by leading. He's getting a big push from Takis. But I mean, there's a spin on the tri-oval. That's going to bring out the yellow here, Sam.
Looking
Right
to
in
see
front of
who
our
it
leader.
was.
Christopher Papa in the 13.
Papa in the 13, back in 16th position, 2 laps down. We're going to take a quick rewind to see what happened to the 13 machine to bring out this caution.
Looks like he made a late commitment to come into the pits and locked up the fronts and spun onto the track. Never really made an honest attempt to get back going again here, Sam.
I mean, he lost it and just it spin. I mean, he could have easily, yeah, I mean, he could have taken it to the apron, and it looked like once he tried to get on the tri-oval, it spun back around, and that's what brought out the caution. Papa makes what could have been a interesting fuel strategy moment into a better breathing moment for Otto. Well, all of these cars behind him are going to have to come in and do a wave around. I think the car that's going to be getting the free pass is going to be Chris Bass.
Yes, so we're at the window now where if you come in, you're good to the end. Fuel is no longer a concern. We're lap 78 of 94. Leaves us with 16 laps to go, so you can make it to the end on fuel here. This is going to even the playing field, and we'll see those, Sam. The question, we've got only 5 cars on the lead lap. 6th on back to 14th are a lap down. And starting with Chris Bass and ending with Chris Robert Hedges in the 8, who I believe were all in that big group. So did they take the wave around here to get back on the lead lap and bank on another quick caution so they can come in and top up on fuel?
As long as there isn't a green-white checkered, all these guys that are going to be using the wave around, they should be good to the end. But with everyone grouping back up, the aggression level is going to be cranked up way higher than it was before. These guys are going to be making a lot more abrasive moves that could bring out another caution. I mean, the term is cautions breed cautions.
Yeah, and that's especially true here at Talladega. So I'm actually glad you brought up that point, because I am looking at it now. Their last stop, at least for Chris Bass, was lap 65. And I believe that is the case for the rest of the pack. Correct me if I'm wrong, that he was a part of. So he's good right to the numbers, right to lap 94. However, this caution is helping everybody who was close. You can shut it off. You can keep it in 4th gear and let it coast. This does help save fuel if you need to do that.
Looking to see, I believe Otto will be keeping the lead. The one issue with Otto, I think, is that he's no longer going to have his drafting buddy of Christopher Takis behind him. He's going to have someone else. So the 46 machine not going to be there, but Christopher Takis should be able to get his one lap back. So he will continue to be at 1 lap down for the 46 machine, but with everyone taking the wave around, believe that should. I don't think everyone actually took it. So he is going to be.
Well, Chris Bass got the lucky dog, and the rest of these guys will get the wave around. So Chris Bass, we saw go by the pace car that last time for the lucky dog, and the rest of the guys behind the pace car will get their lap back.
Yeah, I'm looking to see, and I think Chris Newman, as well as the 33 of Chris Jones, all came into the pits this time, so they will not be taking the wave around. I take that back. I believe Jones might be taking the wave around this time. It was Newman that will not be taking it because he came into the pits.
Correct. I believe you're correct with that. Everybody that you see behind the pace car right now that does not dive in the pit road right now will get a wave around. Doesn't look like any of them are going to. So all of this group of cars will get a free pass by the pace car, and I believe it should still cycle Otto out to the lead. He should still be our race leader.
He's going to put Otto into the lead. It's going to be Morris in 2nd. It's going to be Wilson in that 9 machine 3rd, as well as the 7 machine of Cordova in 4th. Roberg, Bass, Reese, Landy, Hubka, and Edwards is going to be our top 10. Those guys are going to be on the lead lap after, from 7th on back. I believe actually 6th on back are all taking the wave around. So it's going to be an interesting time for these guys. With them taking the wave around, they're going to be all the way in the back with the cars that are going to be a couple of laps down. So they're going to have to figure out how to drive around them. It's going to be an interesting last couple of laps. As we are less than 20 laps to go, Oh boy, do you see a caution right away, or do you think we will see a caution at all during this last stint?
Oh, we will see a yellow. I am certain of that. But as far as when it comes, it might not be till late into the run, near the end of this thing, because everybody will, as you said, will try to sort themselves out and let the pack form up and kind of get situated, put themselves into a position that they want to be in to make that charge at the end of this thing when that white flag starts waving. But it's a matter of how aggressive these guys are on the restart to try and get every spot they can or to get their position in line.
Well, it's been a fun race so far. They got all split up once we had those green flag pit stops, but now they're grouping all back up. Looks like we're going to be having 13 cars on the lead lap, and it looks like the 8 machine of Chris Robert Hedges is going to be the last car on the lead lap, as all these cars that took the wave around trying to race around the track to get behind everyone else at the moment. We've only had a couple of cars that are no longer racing with us. It looks like the 4 machine of Chris Scott, because of his engine being blown, as well as Christopher Cook's. Cook, he is out of this thing. Chris Noblet, he is still running out there on track, but as so many laps down, he'll be stuck in 22nd. Pace car rolls up. We're going to be going through the tri-oval. Green doesn't start just yet. They got to get through the tri-oval before the restart begins.
See Chris Otto doing a good job letting that 9 suck right up to his back bumper and takes off well, as does the 9. So a good restart from our leader. Now it's just a matter of to see how big this pack forms up. You see all the guys that took the wave around kind of jump to the top so they can get around the lap cars that are between them and the leaders.
And up front, our leaders are looking good. It looks like Christopher Takis up on the high side, trying to get anyone to move up and work with them. We know Takis has a strong car, but he's 2 laps down. That's the issue for the 46 machine. He's trying to get back up to Otto's bumper, where he's been for most of the race. But you're seeing these guys racing hard down the backstretch. It's 2 cars trying to pull away. That's going to be Wilson and Otto up front.
Yeah, and this isn't the time where you want to just play it safe and get through these last 14 laps. You've got to go now. This is go time. So these guys that are that restarted at the back need to get in line and suck up to this lead pack before they really start going two and 3 wide to get up to these guys. But you see our leaders, they're starting to get racy up there, and now everybody's within an equal shot. There's Chris Takis right to the back bumper of Chris Otto. We saw that during the green flag run, and he's back there again.
We know how fast Christopher Takis and Otto are when they are hooked up to one another, but it's all about staying clean on the inside. I think this is exactly where you want to see Otto, but he's got competition on the outside. You got Wilson, Morris, as well as the 98 of Roberg trying to hold up on the high side as the 98 pulls down low. Now only 2 cars on the high side.
Seeing such good pushes come from that 46 to the 88 there every time they come off of turn 2 to keep him in that lead. And the 98 is kind of picking up on that, like, man, these are 2 fast cats in front of me. This is kind of who I want to be with now. The question always lies, where do you want to be coming down to the end of this thing? What position in line do you want to be in? Do you want to be second? Do you want to be third? Do you want to be leading? Or do you want to be a little bit further back? It always seems to change race to race here at Dega, but it seems like the favorite spot to be in is either second or third, Sam.
You'd think second or third, but right now, Otto's got the best person behind him. It's a lap machine who is not going to leave his back bumper to try to win this race. He's going to stay there the whole entire time. So the cars all around him are really thinking the usual strategy of everyone for themselves at the end. That's not going to be the case here this time by, unless we see Takis have an issue.
Yeah, you make a good point about that, him being the best pusher that he could have, because he knows he's going to stay glued to him here coming to the white flag, but they're pretty shaky behind him. There was a little bit of a touch from the 9 to the back bumper of the 46. It wasn't a good touch. There was a little bit of a wiggle, getting a little bit dicey up here at the front, and people are starting to clue in that this is time to go.
Yeah, Takis was trying to breathe his car and get some fresh air, not trying to overheat that motor and blow up like we saw the 4 machine do earlier. why he was getting a little bit out of shape, and no one else really reacted well to it. Luckily, no one spun out, but that high line needs to start grouping up. There needs to be more cars up there if they want to make a push here, as we're coming to 10 laps to go here at the Chrisabama 250.
And the other thing that these guys kind of behind these two is they've got to, in a sense, they've still got to work together, Sam. They've got to realize that these two are so good together, it's going to be hard to break them up. So get that top line going, get a good run going on the top, see if you can pass them up high. But they're being so racy right now. They've got to form up and get some sort of unison going. There's a little bit of a gap between them now to the 7 down on the inside. This is as good a time as any to maybe get that run going on the top.
Up front here in this big pack for the lead, there are only 9 machines on the lead pack up here in this group, and then you've got a cluster of about 5 lap machines scattered within them. I mean, you got Takis up here, who would have hypothetically, if he was on the lead lap, be second, and then you've got Chrisabama, who's also back here running around what would have been 8th, but he's a couple of laps down.
The 7 got forced out of line by the 3 there. A little bit of a dicey moment entering the corner, but they're all able to avoid him pretty well. And didn't look to lose that much momentum on this little lead group on the inside, but they'll have to get formed back up if they want to get back up to the front.
There on the apron is going to be the 18 of Cody Jenkins, who had some issues, was on the lead lap, had to come into the pits to get some repairs done. He'll be dropping back to 14th. Well, now we've only got 12 cars on the lead lap. We've got this big group up here of 9 cars on the lead lap on this large pack, but then you go back about 7 seconds or so, you've got a couple of machines that might have had damage and was not able to use any more fast repairs because they already used them up. You got Chris Bass, Chris Hubka, and Hedges back here, as well as these are the 3 machines with a pack of about 6 cars. Lost the draft, and they're kind of out of it.
See that top line really starting to come in, but it's only a 2-car group that's up there. It's the 9 and the 3, but the 9 is pushing the 3 so hard they're able to get that run off the corner on the 46 and the 48. They almost had them cleared going into turn 1. They've got something figured out. They've got to stay hooked up if they want to get by that 88.
Now, we saw the 4-car blow up, but how long can you really stay on the back bumper, like just hugging them? How long can you really do that for without your car blowing up on you?
Yeah, if you stay glued right to that back bumper, it's about maybe 4 laps, maybe 5 that you can really push that hard. So you don't want to do that just yet. Push them hard for maybe a lap or 2 and then cut them off. You don't have to leave that much space, Sam, between your front bumper and the back bumper of the car ahead for these cars to breathe. They're very good at breathing with just a little bit of distance between the cars. So you can still stay relatively close to that car in front, but in terms of being right up, touching that back bumper, it's only about 4, maybe 5 laps of hard pushing.
I mean, we're going to do a little bit of a nose cam to show you how close Takis is to Otto. And you see him move up. That's just him trying to give his car some room as he's going through the 88.
He's in the wall. He put the 3 in the wall.
A huge caution in the back. The 3 machine spinning around, coming back. It looks like that's going to be
everybody.
Cordoba and a whole bunch of other cars upside down. That's the 2 machine. Norman involved, so many machines, and it gives all the cars back here that were 7 seconds back another chance.
I mean, that's just a big block from a car that just wasn't even in contention for this thing. It was Takis we saw him move up the 88. He moved out of line from behind the 88 to slow the momentum of the 3, and I mean, the 3 was there, Sam. He had nowhere he could go and just got run right up into the outside wall, did the 3 of Chris Morse.
I mean, it looked like also Takis might have bumped the 88 a little off, thought he was going to get him loose, moved, and that was a late block that did not work well, and you saw the chaos behind it.
Yeah, I mean, the 3's got the position, and maybe they hooked a little bit there, did the 46 and the 3, but I mean, it was never going to work, and it's still it's not too early to be blocking, but I mean, that position was conceded almost. Just stay in line at that point, but a lot of cars that were able to get into good position are now taken out in that wild ride from the 2 of Chris Daniels.
The second big one hits late, as it looked like we were about to come to the end where cars were going to just be on top of one of each other's bumpers, and more than half of what was this front pack, I think there was about 5 cars on the lead lap, all collected in that one. some of these cars that were collected, they already used their fast repair, so they're going to have to deal with the damage they have now.
Yeah, and on the flip side of that, I know I saw a couple of cars in that wreck that we haven't seen in incidents. I don't think we've seen the 3 be in any sort of incident, nor have we seen the 9 be involved in anything. So a couple of those guys haven't really been into any trouble, so they've got that fast repair still at their disposal to use in scenarios such as this.
Luke Daniels involved in that wreck. He's still in the pits trying to get repairs done. He was the car that flipped over and went for probably the wildest ride there. And looks like as well, the 88 of Hedges came in, got some repairs done. He'll get back out there. He'll be the last car on the lead lap, back at 11th place. Only 11 cars on the lead lap, but it seems like there's only a couple of cars that really have a chance to win this thing. Looking at cars that are out here that are going to get the lead lap, I think Chris Jones is going to be getting the lucky dog position, bringing ourselves to 11 cars on the lead lap. But will we see? I don't think Newman can take the wave around, nor can Jenkins or the 2 car.
Yeah,
so
I believe you're correct, because the Jones was the only one of the lapped cars that were not involved in that wreck. We saw Newman be involved in that, and as well as the 18 and the 2. So I believe you're correct in saying that the 33 will be the lucky dog and will be the 12th car on the lead lap for this finish.
And other cars that could possibly be taking could be getting a wave around. That's going to be the 44 machine of Shepard, who's 3 laps down, because I think everyone else that was a lap down car might have been involved in that wreck, because I just go through and I saw that car have contact during the caution, that car had contact. It's difficult to say who's able to take a wave around at this point.
Yeah, it's like a short track almost, Sam, because so many cars are bouncing off one another. There's a lot more argy-bargy here than we're used to seeing here at super speedways. So there's very few cars that are unscathed left, and a lot of names that we really haven't talked about that are up at the front. Chris Wilson being one of those guys, the 9 machine. We haven't really talked about him in the first half of this race, and now all of a sudden he's showing up towards the end of this thing and is putting on a show. Chris Reese, haven't focused on him a lot in that 62 machine. And Chris Hedges, the 8 car, was the last car on the lead lap, was involved in that wreck, but the 8 machine, we haven't spoken about him at all either, because we just haven't seen him around the front of this pack, but he's still on the lead lap and very much within a shot at winning this thing.
Start of the broadcast, we brought it up. The 2 different strategies: get up front and race, which we've been seeing Otto with the help of Takis used and utilized to be up front, and everyone else from about 4th on back have been the cars that have used the strategy of I'll survive until the end when I really need to be there, and they're up there in 4th. And I got to give it up to Reese and Edwards and Cordova. They've all been, Cordova's been up front and in the back. He's been shuffling back and forth. But I know Edwards and Reese and those cars that were in the back waiting for something to happen finally did. Now they're up here for the final charge.
Yeah, and this is where that strategy, that play it safe strategy, really pays off. You really pat yourself on the back for making it work, because you're here, you're with a clean race car. Might even have a fast repair left, so you can kind of just send it in there. And if you get involved in a wreck, you've got the fast repair to repair your stuff with and go at it again. But this is where that strategy really pays off.
Whoa, this 72 machine had some issues. I don't know what happened, but now he's up into the wall. I think he might have gotten into Landy, or we got to go back to a quick. We're about to go green, but we have to go back to see what happened to that 72 machine to just bolt up. And I believe that was Cordova he ran into. Already had damage on that 72 machine. He did not hit anyone, avoided to hit anyone, dumped it down, did not graze the wall, very close to hitting it, but that was a risky play from that 72 machine, who's now trying to get back up front before we go green.
It sounded like, Sam, he was riding around. I've done this before too, as I'm embarrassed enough to admit it, but I've done it before too. He was riding around under caution in 4th and just tried to get it down the 2nd gear and shifted down 1 gear too low to 1st, and that snapped the car to the right. So as you said, he made a good recovery, wasn't able to was able to not hit anything or anyone. So he's no harm, no foul, but a scary moment for him and everybody around him indeed coming down to the finish of this thing. This should be a natural green-white checkered here, Sam.
Looking at the laps, I believe this is going to be 3 laps to go.
3 to go, yep.
3 laps to go here in the Chrisabama 250, and Chris Otto back up front, and he's going to be trying to get some help from someone. And Christopher Takis, you see him, he went 3 wide back there. He's trying to get back up on the back end of Chris Otto once again, but he's got a lot of machines he's got to pass.
Yeah, there's quite a few cars in between him and the guy he wants to be pushing, and Chris Otto knows that as well, so he's going to try and do whatever he can to keep his car in front of that 998 machine. We saw them hooking up earlier in the run, and they were fast together. Here comes the 9, looking to the outside of turn 3. Is he going to get any help from the 98? It doesn't look like it, so he's going to have to fall back in line before that 62 closes the gap. Really close, but he's able to get down there in time.
Almost got caught up with the 62 machine was Wilson, but able to stay clean. Now it's just 2 cars up front. That's going to be Roberge and Otto. And Takis, you're seeing that bright blue machine just trying every move he can to try to get up front, but he's getting 0 help as a lap machine, and I expect to see that for most of this. These guys that are on the lead lap are not planning on helping a lap car get up front.
Yeah, and if you're one of these guys that is on the lead lap, it's so frustrating to have to worry about that guy racing you, because he's not at all for position. He's 2 laps down, so it's so frustrating as a driver to have to deal with that. But it looks like for the most part he's going to settle in back to where he's at, and he's leaving Chris Otto to fend for himself here with the 98.
Chris Otto coming around turn number 4, and he's got to get by the tri-oval, and then it will be the white flag. Yeah, it's got to be one of the longest white flags for Otto. He's got to be mirror driving, worrying about that 9 machine and possibly getting a run on the outside. But right now, he's only got that Chrissy D machine behind him, and it's the white flag is right behind him. Oh no, it's going to be looking like it might finish like this. Yellow is not out, but it's looking like Otto's still going.
Right, yeah, white flag. This race is official. It's a 2-horse race, the 98 and the 88. Neither of these guys are going to have any help. So right now, the bets in Vegas show that this is in the hands of the 98. When is he going to make that move? Remember, the start-finish line is after the tri-oval, so he doesn't want to make that move too early, give the 88 a chance to come back.
Our telemetry is wrong right now. It is the 88 machine and the 98. The 98's making the pass here before the tri-oval. Is it too soon? It might be, but it looks like...
Oh, they touch!
Touch! They touch again! It's going to be Otto crossing the line. Robert's going to be getting second.
What a finish between those two. They were... I mean, I got to think that the 98 made the move a little too early there. It's just... You have so long to go through that tri-oval there, Sam, and it's just, I think he needs to wait till he's about maybe halfway through the tri-oval to get that run, but it allowed the 88 to come back, and great job by Chris Otto to hold him off coming to the stripe.
Cars that survived that carnage in turn number 1 and 2. It's going to be Hedges and Landy, 3rd and 4th, and Edwards, who gets 5th. We're going to take a quick look to watch at that final battle crossing the line, as I think it might have been the fact that Otto would have raced it clean, but that first contact made it to where he had to come back and retaliate.
Yeah, it's exactly what I thought as well, too. I mean, there was it by no means, I don't think it was intentional from Roberts. You actually see Otto come up a little bit to try to get some of the side draft, and they touch. So Roberts doesn't come down at all, but I mean, it's just one of those deals. You take some, so you give some back, and that's what won Otto the race. Unfortunate for Roberts. He made all the right moves. I just think he should have waited a little bit later in that tri-oval to get to pull alongside him.
And now we're seeing the 88 getting to celebrate, coming to the line, and that was, you knew Chris Otto had one of the fastest machines out here. He had all the help from Takis giving him that lead position. And Roberge gave it everything he had in that Chrissy D machine, but just could not beat the Chris Nation car.
And a fantastic drive from him. I mean, we saw him leading quite a few laps, and he played the strategy to his favor when we were under green there for all those laps there. He was up at the front for majority of this race, Sam. He started fourth and never really left the top five. So, fantastic job from him, and obviously very ecstatic about the win, and a big one he needed, as he was outside the top 10 in points. He was 13th coming into the day, as you see him blow him up down there in burnout celebrations. Well earned, but a big day for Chris Otto.
A fantastic day for Chris Otto. We're now going to be moving down to check out at the racing results. Chris Otto gets it done in the 88 machine. Then Roberge, Chris Hedges, who somehow survived that first wreck, got to get third. Landy, Edwards, Hupka, Jones, Cordova, Wilson, and Bass going to be for your top 10 right there. But it just continued on to be one of those crazy races out here for these guys. As for 11th, it's going to be Christopher Morris, Chris Jenkins, Chris Newman, Christopher Papa, Christopher Takis getting 16th after helping Otto so much. And a lot of these guys were helping the guys up front for so long, it felt like they were on the lead lap with the way they were running.
Yeah, and that definitely messes with the heads of the guys that were off the lead lap, because you see how quick you are whenever you're pushing those leaders, and it makes you wonder what you could have done if fortune was on your side and you were able to stay on the lead lap. So definitely a frustrating day for Takis, who started this race 2 laps down and just was never able to get those laps back. So he definitely had some pace there this afternoon and was able to help Chris Otto get this job done here this afternoon, and a fantastic day again for that 88 machine.
Chris Leach is going to be getting 17th, and then Christopher Lawrence and Christian Shepard is going to be the last of the machines that finished out this race on track. Then the cars had some issues, were not able to finish this race. Chris Davis wasn't able to finish it up, as well as Chris Scott, Chris Noblet, as well as Christopher Cook. And these guys had some great runs at some point during this race, just luck was not on their side.
Yeah, at one point or another, we saw all these guys in this field up at the front, and that's just the way Talladega goes. And like I said, this is a relatively small field for a super speedway race. 23 cars is pretty tiny, because all those guys are so close together. They're all within 2 seconds at some points there, especially at the start when the pack is all grouped up. So you can throw the field under a blanket at some point. So we did see all these guys up at the front at one point in time or another. Just some days it turned out worse than others.
All right, now we're waiting to see for drivers. I think we're going to give you, Logan, the controls for these interviews for drivers that are going to be coming in, and we're waiting for them to come in now.
We start with Chris Roberge. Chris Roberge,
you had a crazy run out there. You had a chance to get this done, but that tri-oval, one of the trickier parts of the track, was not able to pass that 88 machine. How was it from your point of view?
Run, I see on the 88 on the tri-oval, but I think he came up on me a little bit, and we tapped each other. Then I kind of got him back on the end, but he saved it. But it's congrats on him.
I mean, it was one of the weirder Talladega races. I mean, after that long green flag run we had, everyone was so split up. It seemed like Otto had one of the bigger gaps on everyone else. Was there at any point that you thought maybe you guys could run down that 88 machine and Takis and the way they were pulling away from everyone else?
Well, earlier I had that little contact earlier in the race on my rear end. I think it was slowing my car down a little bit, so I couldn't drop hardly anybody, but I kept it close enough to keep up with them. But we're slowly, until we finally used our last repair we had to use trying to keep up with them, and we're catching up slowly, but until that caution came out, it kind of changed everything around, and I came in second. It's pretty good. I'm happy.
Logan, you got any questions?
Yeah, Chris, this was a little bit different style of super speedway racing than maybe we're normally used to seeing and you're used to running. It was for a majority of the race, the field was so spread out. There were miniature packs all over the place. What was kind of going through your head during that green flag run? Were you concerned about fuel at all? Were you concerned about maybe having a shot at the end of this thing? Should it have stayed green all the way up to the finish? What was your thought process throughout this race?
Well, I think everybody was gonna try and do a quick splash and go before the yellow came out. So we're trying to strategize. Same with my crew chief there. We're trying to say, well, stay behind someone. You save a little bit of fuel if you're behind someone. So that's why I was letting lap cars in front of me and be behind them just to keep myself save gas that way. And it did pay off a bit.
Well, Chris, it was a great effort on your part. A second place finish isn't a bad day, but I know you wanted the win. Congratulations on that. And now we're going to table to you and the mic to you. You can do your shout outs.
Yes, I wanted to big shout out to my wife for being a huge support for me on this one. And same with you guys. Yeah, big support from the booth at the booth. And thanks for Chris Jones for doing all this for us. And we're having a blast with this. Chris's name. Holy.
That's Chris Roberge getting that second place finish. Congratulations, and try to celebrate that second place finish.
Oh, I will do. I'm really good at super speedway. So this is my second place, second time for super speedway.
And now we're going to bring in Chris Robert Hedges. Hedges right there had one of the luckiest rides. Chris, you got us?
Yeah, I got you.
How did you get through that mess through 1 and 2?
Actually, I think I'm the one that caused the whole thing. I got up in the Chris Morris and I just got loose and I tried to hold it and I wrecked everybody. So it wasn't intentional, and then I just got down on the apron and was able to keep it in the gas and came home third, which was cool. Second race, so I'll take a top 3.
I mean, we were seeing you. We were seeing you in the back of the pack for most of this race, just racing until you can get to the end here. Was there any real at the end of this race? Was there any real chance you had for going for the leader?
Yeah, I kept my quick repair because I had some damage. So luckily I had that when the last caution came out, and I got tires, and I think that helped a lot. So I had front end damage. That's what kept me. I was a lap down for half the race. And I took the wave around, so I was able to get back on, and then that quick caution, and everything came around to my way. I was pushing. I was trying to get to that lead, but that wreck slowed me down, and luckily I was able to hold on to third.
Chris, it's usually a mixed bag of strategy when you come to super speedway races in terms of how you want to approach the race. You either be aggressive all day long, keep yourself up at the front and hopefully out of the trouble, or you stay at the back and avoid the trouble whenever it does happen in front of you. So starting 20th, what was, before going into this race, before all the craziness happened mid-race, what was your mindset coming into this race, given where you started and what you needed to do to get to the end of this thing?
Yeah, I intentionally stayed in the back. I don't want to get up there and early and just with a bunch of wrecks. Luckily, everybody raced pretty clean for the most part. I mean, the pit stops spread everybody out to where it was 2 or 3 cars at packs, and there was no big car packs. I mean, so I think that caused a lot of the racing to be like it was. And everybody was 2 or 3 pack. I don't think anybody got into like a big pack except for there at the end. I got really screwed up on my first pit stop, and I mean, like I said, I got a lap down, and I just stayed in it, and luckily everything turned out my way for the most part. I'll take third place.
Yeah, third place was not a bad finish for that 8 machine, Chris. And now we'll hand the microphone up to you to do any shout outs that you want.
Let's give a shout out to my daughter. She's not watching me, but she's always watching over my shoulders when I'm racing during the week. So shout out to her, and appreciate Chris putting on the league. It's fun. The first 2 weeks have been really fun, and gives me something to do on a Saturday night.
Well, that's Chris Robert Hedges that gets it done, getting a podium finish for third place, getting through that accident. Congratulations.
Thank you guys. Have a nice night.
Next, we're going to be bringing in Chris Otto, who was up front for most of this race, had one of the more wild leads after green going on, and then at the end, he had to make some abrasive moves to get the win. Chris, how did you get that win at the end there?
Well, I did it kind of dirty. I didn't mean to get into 98 there at the end. I just tried to keep him up the track, and then I hopefully get a run there off the bottom of the tri-oval, but didn't mean to do him dirty like that. But we talked about it just while we were in that waiting room there, and he's all right with it. He would have done the same thing if he was in my position. So.
Yeah, Chris, we were seeing that you and Takis were really, whenever you guys got together, you just pull away from everyone else. When you didn't have him on your back bumper there with those last 3 laps, what way were you trying to drive to keep that lead?
Well, honestly, I was just pedal to the metal and don't let up, and just if somebody develops a run on the outside, I was just going to go up there and block it. And it was the best case scenario there in the last lap. They wrecked going into 1, and it was just a 2-car battle for the win. That was probably the easiest Talladega win I've ever had.
So, Chris, coming into this race, you were sitting 13th in points, just outside the top 10 there to make the postseason. Now, obviously, with the win, you're locked into that postseason. On the flip side of that, Sam mentioned it briefly, you worked a lot with Chris Takis, who was 2 laps down for pretty much the whole race. Did you guys have a deal made coming into this race with him already being scored 3rd in points, that maybe he could help you kind of get into that postseason top 10? Was there a deal made beforehand coming into this thing?
No, not even a little bit. Actually, what happened was that first round of green flag pit stops, Chris Cody Jenkins, I guess, we both pitted together, and he brought it in there too hot and got a speeding penalty, so he had to come back down. So I lost my help, and I came around a couple laps later, and I caught up to some cars, and I was able to draft up around, and then I got around Takis, and then we just stayed together. I mean, he is such a great pusher, and I pretty much would not have won this race without him behind my bumper for most of the second half of this race.
Yeah, I mean, during that green flag run and all those pit stops, how was it for you getting woed up and coming into the pits?
It was pretty easy for me. I usually like to woe it down way before I'm supposed to. I think on that last green flag pit stops where me and Takis pitted together, he beat me into pit road because I didn't want to get a speeding penalty. So I was going like probably 48 miles an hour when I got into pit road.
Well, that is Chris Otto getting the win, and now we'll toss the microphone over to you for all your shout-outs.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you guys for hosting these or broadcasting these races, and it's really fun to watch these streams and go back and rewatch them when I'm bored and all that stuff. And appreciate Chris Jones for putting on this league. I've been having a blast with it. It's so much fun, and I'd like to thank Takis a lot for all the pushing that he did. I mean, during the race, he said if it comes down to it and he's pushing me at the end, he's not going to do anything to screw me over. He is going to just push me to the win, and that was real. I appreciate that, and he did such a great job pushing.
Well, that's Chris Otto in the 88 machine getting it done today here at the Chrisabama Race 250. And this was a fun one to watch. Thank you, Chris, for coming in for the interviews, and congratulations on the win.
Yeah, thank you guys. You guys have a great day.
Well, Logan, that was, they were spread out for most of the race, but they came back together at the end in contact to get the win for Chris Otto. What was your thoughts on that race?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly caught me off guard. It definitely was not the sort of super speedway Talladega style race that that I was expecting, especially about the middle of the race. It definitely threw me for a loop with how spread out the field was, how mixed up the field was. I thought we were going to be nose to tail, bumper to bumper majority of this race, if not all of it. So definitely an interesting race in terms of that, but the finish, as always, did not disappoint.
It did not disappoint. It was one of the funner finishes. I mean, it tried to compare itself to last week's finish. I mean, Texas had one of the more bizarre finishes, but this was a classic Talladega finish where cars were bumping and rubbing, trying to see who's going to get it done. Chris Otto and the 88 machine did it today. There's other FRN broadcasts going on here besides the Chris Cup. We've got going on right now, I believe, is the Soto guys racing at Sonoma. And then later tonight for FTF, we'll be racing at Pocono. So we got a lot of action here for the FRN network. And I want to say thank you to everyone that watched today. And thank you, Logan, for coming in the booth with me. It was a fun one for us. Well,
yeah, absolutely. Always a pleasure to be up here calling this eventful series, and looking forward to, I believe, next week. I think we're at Bristol next week, so that should be a fun one, and tempers are bound to flare.
Oh, they're bound to flare a lot. I believe I'll be back in the booth for that one as well, so more action to be seen. Can't wait for that one. But for myself, my name's Sam Dyer. This is Logan Brakey from the Flat Out Racing Network. Have a great one.